Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned with us. This is our first conversation for this morning, and we have joining us via Zoom virtually the Minister of Human Development, Families, and Gender Affairs, Honorable Thea Garcia-Ramirez. Minister, good morning. It's a pleasure having you this morning.
Good morning to you and everyone else watching and tuning in. My apologies for not being able to make it in person this morning.
Well, that's no problem. We'll forgive you this one time because every other time you've made an effort to be here. So we appreciate that. We want to spend some time speaking about Women's Month and the issues that confront women in Belize to this day. But let's start briefly with what is the focus for you and your team this time around where Women's Month is concerned?
Well, Women's Month is really a celebration of women living in Belize, really trying to ensure that they have maximum visibility for all they contribute to Belize, to the economy, what they contribute to our families, to our communities, in terms of culture, in terms of arts, in terms of just everyday lives. Women are amazing in that even the smallest contribution is so much, and collectively we are half of this country, and we, I believe, need to be recognized for all the things that we do, and all the things that we do all at once. Many of us are out there being mothers, heads of households, sole breadwinners, and we are also the ones that take on a lot of the caregiving for children and for elder people. Some of us, while we're doing that, we're also studying. You manage a family, you study, you try to better yourself professionally and personally. So women do a lot for this country, and we want to shine a spotlight on them because I believe that a lot of times people just overlook and take for granted all the things that women do for this country. And so we want to also, in this case, this year, balance the scales. We still have a gender gap in this country. We still fall behind when it comes to leadership positions in certain sectors. We still are not represented equally in the labor market. There's a lot of barriers still, and so we want to shine a light on that and say, let's balance the scales, let's make it happen.
Minister, you are now in a ministerial position where you can change policies and have our voices be heard at a table where not many of us have that opportunity. What are some of these key policies that you believe perhaps need revised that would maybe balance these scales, as you put it?
Well, certainly I don't work in isolation. I work as a part of a team. That team is called Cabinet. The government certainly has, and I have to say, the government and my cabinet colleagues certainly have not only my back, but the backs of all women, and they're really concerned, as am I, in trying to revise. And so we have the gender policy, 2024-2030. And so we are guided by that policy, and that policy was just brought on. And that sort of is the guide and the framework under which we are all working. As there are many things, for example, it's not only policies through my ministry, or the ministry which I lead, but for example, things that have been happening recently, and recently for government can go back 1 or 2 years because it takes that long for something to be formed, to be consulted, and to be passed as a policy. But for example, under that policy, you could put the fact that the minister and Ministry of Health and Wellness has decided not to charge, at least at the up to the community and regional hospital level, a lot of their primary health care initiatives. For example, recently, and people may not connect the dots, but recently, when you have a baby, whether by C-section or by natural birth at the Orange Walk Northern Regional Hospital, you don't have any charges whatsoever. And that is important. Why is that important, particularly for women, looking at it from that lens, is because a lot of women don't have money to pay those fees. Previously, if you cannot pay, then you wouldn't receive immediately your proof of birth. I don't agree with that policy. And that is against the human rights of the child, who has all the rights to be recognized, to be counted within society, within the government, to have identity, and we can go on and on. But just to use the example, currently you can walk into the Northern Regional as an expectant mother, have your baby, receive your proof of birth immediately, and be able to register your baby. And that is very important, because previously, I think 9 out of 10 times why a child was not registered was the lack of the proof of birth, and it was because they were not able to make partial or full payment to the hospital. And so that has been one of we have removed one of the barriers for women in particular, and for young children. So you can see how the policy guides these types of initiatives, and how the government is working, very cohesively, and we're all working together to ensure that these things happen. So it's not only really within the Ministry of Human Development, Family Support, and Gender Affairs, although we do from time to time point out how certain things could better living conditions, how they can better circumstances for all women living in Belize. So we're guided by the gender policy, and we're very proud of a lot of the initiatives that have come forth.
In a male-dominated cabinet, what is your experience as a woman, one of only 2 in cabinet?
Well, my experience, to be honest, is at that level of great partnership. I think that my colleagues, and certainly everyone that sits in there, benefits greatly from a different perspective. Women in Belize live a different reality than men living in Belize, and so our lived experiences add that dimension when policies are being made. We don't always agree, I'll be honest about that. We don't always see things the same, but we shouldn't, and that's why diversity, that's why inclusion are important, because it gives you another point of view, another lived experience, and maybe that's why we fight so hard for it. My other cabinet colleague, who's also a woman, Honorable Dolores Valderramos Garcia, who I wish to publicly acknowledge for a lot of the work that she had done when she was the Minister of Human Development, because a lot of the things, a lot of the initiatives that when I first came in were only a continuation of work that she had already started. So we work very, very united. I want to say that I believe that they have benefited from our points of view, because a lot of the times you are working only from your vantage point, and having another vantage point certainly helps to see how some of these policies sometimes affect women differently, affect young girls differently, and so they're very cognizant of that fact, and we ensure that our point of view, even though we are a minority in cabinet, that our point of view gets across.
Why, I just want to continue on that
yes.
topic to ask, why do you think more men in politics are not stepping aside and making space for women?
Truthfully, why would they? I mean, if you have everything set up for you, why would you step aside? Why would anybody step aside?
Yeah, that's why I fight was so hard. I wanted to ask kind of a piggyback question on that one, because I know that the gender policies is dedicated to also acquire data on, you know, how it's going, women and girls in education, in businesses, in politics. Even though it's only been a few years, 2 years to be exact, that it's been implemented, have you received any sort of data to say why is it that girls aren't stepping in to positions of leadership, not just politics, but in other spaces, both private and in public sectors?
Well, I can tell you that from lived experience,
sure.
Actually. I don't really need to see the statistics, but there are significant barriers to for women when we want to step into any space of leadership, whether that be at work or in politics. And the most productive years of a person's life are actually those childbearing years for women. And a lot of times we are expected, and we expect ourselves to take time off to rear children. Once you have that second child, it becomes cheaper and more logical for you to step out of the workforce in order to take care of your children. We don't have, for the most part, we don't have childcare in our country. There's no daycares, there's no centers where you can drop off your children for work and then pick them up later. And we are going to then speak about the fact that even when you pay somebody, for a lot of women, the cost is very, very, high, and it just doesn't make sense, and it's not standardized. It's asking the lady next door to watch your children for you, and then 3/4 of your salary goes there for childcare. Then you decide, well, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I would rather stay at home and take care of my children. So we have that, where we will speak about the fact that we work a 8 to 5 job, and then we come home. Every woman comes home that works outside of her home, comes home and does 5 hours every day, at least on average. Some do more of basic home chores. We all live in the house, but the home chores fall almost exclusively to women. And when you do that, and when you're tired, you come home, you work some more, there is little time for anything else. But apart from that, I will tell you why women don't get into leadership positions, even politics. We do not mentor each other, and we do not get mentored by men. It's very rare that other men in leadership positions will look at a woman and say, you know what, she's good. Let me bring her under my wing and teach her and show her the ropes so that she can get better, so that she can lead. That's not going to happen. Even most politicians, and I'm talking across party lines, will mentor other men, and they will not mentor a woman. And so it's very difficult to break through. I'll tell you right now, if you look at the statistics for education, more women are in school, starting at secondary school level and tertiary. So we have women out here walking around with master's degrees, with bachelor's degrees. They are not in the workforce. Where are they? They're at home.
I wanted to jump into a particular part of your speech just now, when you were talking about women that are, child care providers and so forth, and just to ask a little bit more about that policy, because I read the policy extensively, and I really am curious to understand why there is no extension for maternity leave. or paid maternity leave, because I feel like one of our bigger challenges is not just maternity leave for moms, but also paternity leaves as well. We kind of have a very unbalanced amount of time off for parents. And of course, if I could stay home with my child and still make my salary, I would do that for an extended period of time. Is there any sort of leeway for that sort of policy to change?
Well, you see, I totally agree with you because there's disconnect, and that's the disconnect that we're trying to bridge when we talk about the gender policy and when you talk about my work as the minister. For example, for that to happen, and I totally agree that 14 weeks for maternity leave is nowhere near enough. Not when and that's what you get paid from Social Security.
Yeah.
But then you have the Ministry of Health and Wellness that's telling you that breast is best and you should feed breast to your child exclusively for 1 year, and that's not going to make sense because once you get back into work and you're expected to take 7 weeks before the date of confinement and 7 weeks after, you're leaving your baby at 7 weeks.
Yep.
How are you going to breastfeed exclusively for a year? That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen, and I can tell you, I have 3 children. It doesn't happen. And so we have a disconnect. So if you want women to breastfeed for a year exclusively, you have to make it possible. You can't ask her to leave her child at 7 weeks. A lot of women, most women, will work up to when they're feeling labor pain, if possible.
Yes.
And then try to get the 14 weeks after, so you have a little bit more time with your child and to do these things that we know are good for children, that gives them the best start. And I do agree, we ask men to stay, to be present as fathers, and it's very important that they do. Especially, I was reading a study just now, I wish I could remember where I was reading it, that women in leadership positions, there was a correlation with them having a good relationship with their father. And so if we then want more women to lead, more women to step up, we need fathers in their lives. We need strong figures of power and authority to show them as well how it's done. But we don't get that because you have no paternal leave. And then how are they expected to bond with their children?
Yeah,
how are they expected to learn how to change a diaper, and they have to go to work? So I agree, but that would entail, for example, the Ministry of Labor, Social Security, and us working all together towards the same thing. And trust me, these discussions have been on the table at cabinet. A lot of times when we see one policy or we see one initiative actually make it through, behind that there is a year at least of work with the people at the very technical level. And then we're talking about consultations and all of these things that need to happen before something like this is actually on the table and you see it happen. So just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it's not happening.
All right, so Minister, finally, before we wrap up the conversation, speak a bit about your plans and your ministry's plans, perhaps some of the more bigger events or initiatives that you'd like to highlight, and then close off with a message to women for this month.
Well, one of the bigger initiatives and what's coming up, we're trying to make the timeline sometime this month because it's now a tradition that Honorable Dolores Valderramos Garcia started, and one which I believe is very key to present to the House an act or a vision that will directly impact women. So the one that we're hoping to, and if we can't make it because of the budget debate and all of these things that need to happen in March as well, we will certainly do it very, very soon after. And that would be the revision of the domestic violence bill, of gender, in terms of gender violence, gender-based violence, that will see a lot of um, things change in the sense that we work very closely with the judiciary. They have been very central to these revisions where you have magistrates and you have judges telling you, listen, what you want under the law now is not contemplated. So there's only so much we can do. And so the revisions actually are very good. They're very timely. They will include, for example, non-cohabitating partners within recognizing that gender-based violence happens, for example, during dating. And more we're seeing that. It's going to include provisions for cybercrime and stalking through the internet and electronically. We're seeing a lot of that, especially with AI coming on, where we're being informed that a lot of AI images with young girls especially and nude pictures, which is just the manipulation of their face, probably put on using AI. And so a lot of these new things need to be contemplated within that act, and this is something that you will see soon come up. And this has been on the table, has gone back for revision, and now come back. Cabinet is just now taking a look at it. We're hoping for a timeline and an opportunity now to take that to the House to ensure that we keep current. But that is certainly one of the key things as we come and we revisit. One of the ones that just passed that it was very necessary was the Justices of the Peace Amendment Act that will allow Justices of the Peace now to issue protection orders just for 72 hours and interim in those cases and in those places where there is not magistrate support available to issue the protection order, and that is just provisional until they can get to a magistrate and they can get to a court. Wonderful. So Excellent. Some of those things, we are trying to be very proactive. We are trying to be very sensitive to what is happening, yes, and ensure that we put those things in place. So those are things that have happened and very recently and will happen in just a few that I think that are very worthy to highlight now.
And I imagine that this calendar is going to be on the Women's Commission Facebook page, the ministry's pages as well. I imagine if people want to learn more, they can head on over to those pages to find out more on the activities for this month.
Yes, I do wish that when we have consultations, we do our very best to travel the country in order for these consultations to occur, but that does not mean that you can't email in if you can't get to one of the physical face-to-face consultation processes. We still very much want people to engage, even if it's digitally, to virtually send us what they think. And a lot of organizations sometimes go to the consultations and then they go back, meet with their membership and write to us. And so in this particular instance, a lot of what we learned during consultation was then put forward in the bill. So we're very proud of that. But we need more people to engage and more people to participate.
Wonderful. Well, I know you probably will be coming down on the couch before the month ends because it is Women's Month after all. And so we look forward to hearing more about the activities and the achievements coming from your ministry and the Women's Commission. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning. The Honorable Thea Garcia-Ramirez. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. But before we go, we have our motivational quote. And our motivational quote goes like this. Today, I will do what others won't. So tomorrow, I can accomplish what others can't. And that is by Jerry Rice. I like that one.
I like that. It goes in line with the saying I have in my life. It says, do the things nobody wants to do, so that you'll do the things nobody have done before. Or go places nobody wants to go, so that you'll go places nobody has ever been before.
Love it. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, a walk towards prevention with the Kidney Association of Belize.